Breaking news from around your world on this Thursday, June 6th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. With silent remembrance and respect, nations honored the fallen and the singular bravery of all Allied troops who sloshed through bloodied waters to the beaches of Normandy 75 years ago on D-Day, the assault that portended the fall of Hitler's Third Reich. French President Emmanuel Macron and President Donald Trump praised the soldiers, sailors, and airmen, the survivors, and those who lost their lives in powerful speeches Thursday that credited the June 6, 1944 surprise air and sea operation that brought tens of thousands of men to Normandy, each not knowing whether he would survive the day. You are the pride of our nation. You are the glory of our republic, and we thank you from the bottom of our heart, Trump said of the warriors engaged in the ultimate fight of good against evil in World War II. Macron expressed France's debt to the United States for freeing his country from the reign of the Nazis. Macron awarded 5 American veterans with the Chevalier Legion of Honor, France's highest award. He said, "We know what we owe to you, veterans, our freedom. On behalf of my nation, I just want to say thank you." Central American migrants were detained at the U.S.-Mexico border in record numbers last month. The Trump administration announced Wednesday that more than 144,278 migrants were arrested on the southern border in May, the biggest monthly total in 7 years and 32% more than in April. President Trump has threatened to impose tariffs on all imports from Mexico unless the country helps stop the flow of undocumented immigrants. Mexico's top diplomat met with Vice President Mike Pence and other U.S. officials on Wednesday to try to convince them Mexico is doing its best to stop illegal immigration, but the two sides failed to reach a deal and will continue talks Thursday. Senate Republicans have threatened to block Trump's tariffs, due to start at 5% and increase monthly to a maximum of 25%. Critics say the tariffs could kill hundreds of thousands of U.S. jobs. The number of measles cases in the United States surpassed 1,000 Wednesday, a milestone Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar called troubling. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said 1,001 people have been sickened by the contagious disease in 2019. The agency made the announcement 2 days after its regular weekly outbreak update. On Monday, the CDC said 981 illnesses had been reported. Azar said of the HHS's efforts to promote safety and vaccinations, the 1,000th case of a preventable disease like measles is a troubling reminder of how important that work is to the public health of the nation. We cannot say this enough. Vaccines are a safe and highly effective public health tool that can prevent this disease and end the current outbreak. The occurrences are largely linked to travelers who return from countries with large measles outbreaks, including Israel, Ukraine, and the Philippines. The CDC said the majority of those infected in the United States were unvaccinated. The symptoms of measles include high fever, cough, runny nose, rash, and red watery eyes, and usually appear between 7 and 14 days after infection. Ohio prosecutors charged a physician Wednesday with more than 24 counts of murder for prescribing fatal doses of opioids to near-death patients. Authorities said Dr. William Husel was arrested and charged with 25 counts of ordering excessive and potentially fatal doses for 25 patients who died. Husel was an intensive care doctor at Mount Carmel Health System from 2015 until he was suspended and fired last fall. His medical license was suspended in January for violations of the minimal care and for failing to cooperate in the board's investigation. The hospital conducted an internal investigation on Husel and several nurses. At least 30 nurses were put on leave. Prosecutors said the deadly doses ranged from 500 micrograms to 2,000 micrograms, and nurses or pharmacists would often override the hospital's medication dispensing cabinets. A typical dose is 25 to 100 micrograms. Husel faces 15 years to life for each count. Police and prosecutors are investigating 29 cases in which patients were given the powerful opioid fentanyl as they were near death. The majority of the patients died at Mount Carmel West in Columbus. Singer R. Kelly is expected to plead not guilty to 11 new sex-related felonies at his Cook County arraignment. Thursday's hearing in Chicago comes a week after prosecutors announced the new counts, including 4 aggravated criminal sexual assault ones. Each carries a maximum prison term of 30 years. Kelly pleaded not guilty in February to 10 related counts of aggravated sexual abuse involving 3 girls and 1 woman over roughly 10 years, starting in the late 1990s. The judge could revoke his bond and order him jailed pending trial, but legal experts say that's highly unlikely. Kelly's lawyer said the accuser in the new charges is one of the 4 accusers in the February charges. Even with more charges, he has said Kelly still expects to prevail at trial. The United States is pursuing the sale of more than $2 billion worth of tanks and weapons to Taiwan. That's according to several people familiar with the negotiations who spoke with Reuters. The move is likely to anger China as a trade war between the world's 2 biggest economies escalates. The sources said an informal notification of the proposed sale has been sent to the U.S. Congress. The potential sale included 108 General Dynamics Corporation M1A2 Abrams tanks worth around $2 billion, as well as anti-tank and anti-aircraft munitions. Taiwan has been interested in refreshing its existing U.S.-made battle tank inventory, which includes M60 Patton tanks. The United States is the main arms supplier to Taiwan, which China deems its own and has never renounced the use of force to bring the self-ruled island under its control. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen said in March the United States was responding positively to Taipei's requests for new arms sales to bolster its defenses in the face of pressure from China. The United States has no formal ties with Taiwan, but is bound by law to help provide it with the means to defend itself. The U.S. Department of Defense has held talks with Malawi's Mkongo Resources and other rare earth miners across the globe about their supplies of strategic minerals, part of a plan to find diversified reserves outside of China. An official with the DoD said on Wednesday the push comes as China threatens to curb exports to the U.S. of rare earths, a group of 17 minerals used in a plethora of military equipment and high-tech consumer electronics. Although China contains only a third of the world's rare earth reserves, it accounts for 80% of U.S. imports of minerals because it controls nearly all of the facilities to process the material. Jason Nye, a material engineer with the Pentagon's Defense Logistics Agency, said, "We are looking for any source of supply outside of China. We want diversity. We don't want a single source producer." The DLA buys, stores, and ships much of the Pentagon's supplies, ranging from minerals to airplane parts to zippers for uniforms. Some of the equipment the Pentagon buys, including night vision goggles and aircraft, are made using rare earth minerals. The Pentagon has long supported efforts to require military contractors to buy domestically sourced minerals, though there are no current U.S. rare earth processing facilities. NASA is planning to sign its first-ever contract with a private commercial launch site in Australia's remote Northern Territory. The space agency says it needs to conduct launches of suborbital sounding rockets in that region for astrophysics science experiments. Its last sounding rocket launch from Australia in 1995 was from a military facility closer to Adelaide. NASA said it intends to award the contract for 3 launches to a startup company, Equatorial Launch Alliance, or ELA, based in Melbourne. ELA is developing the private launch facility in Australia's remote top-end region. The closest major city to the launch site is Darwin. According to NASA, experiments for the launches, scheduled for July 2020, would be spectrographs to measure light spectrums from the Alpha Centauri star system to better understand possible atmospheres around other planets. Another experiment, led by University of Wisconsin, would launch instruments to detect interstellar hot gas, possibly shedding light on the structure and evolution of galaxies, among other things. Amazon said it will use drones to deliver packages to customers within months. It unveiled its latest iteration at a conference in Las Vegas, touting the machine's ability to spot obstacles such as people, dogs, and clotheslines. Amazon executive Jeff Wilke said the drone would be able to travel 15 miles to carry packages weighing 5 pounds or less. Wilke did not say where in the world the drone deliveries would initially take place or precisely when. However, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration told the BBC it had granted Amazon a permit to operate the drone in the U.S. On stage during the firm's Re-Mars conference, an event highlighting the firm's work in machine learning, robotics, automation, and space, Amazon displayed the drone that will be used. It uses 6 rotors and sees what's around it using a combination of data from visual, thermal, and ultrasonic sensors. Wilke said the drone's design had been optimized to minimize intrusive high-frequency sounds. Amazon insists that it has built a drone with multiple redundancies for avoiding objects, even if it lost its connectivity. And that's your update for this Thursday, June 6th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening and for supporting this podcast with your generous donations. I hope you have a wonderful day.